Heidi-ho for another episode of Ideas to Inspire Ideas, the show that wants to believe that the pen is mightier than the sword. Ooh, splinter. I will admit it crossed my mind to do a Pen 15 gag in this intro, but the topic requires a lot more maturity than that. As much maturity as I can muster. This is a political espionage thriller in a war zone in the form of a novel. Yes, I will have to get a little political with this discussion. Not like I'm Ubisoft's Tom Clancy. Admittedly, a genre that I do not have the knowledge with. I will never have the life experience to write competently. I've increased my interest in war movies over the years. Platoon I watched a while ago, Jacob's Ladder very recently, First Blood more than any other Rambo movie.
Nothing is over! Me and the boys, we got plans for what comes later after the war. Got names for our band and jobs for each other.
This is an elite military group sneaking into a heavily occupied area, collecting ground level evidence of the atrocities that the locals are being subjected to and trying to sneak out. Originally it was called the Yemen Testimonies. Not saying that Yemen is perfectly fine nowadays. You might think I'd suggest to keep it up to date, call it the Gaza Testimony. F*** off YouTube, I'm not even monetized. But actually no, the point of the mission is to publicate the evidence so everyone knows what's happening. In Gaza we do know what's happening, we just can't stop the assholes from doing it. And the novelized version would go step by step of being hired, training. I request that my military records be investigated to confirm these qualifications, in assurance that everything else I write here can be trusted. I was told from the beginning that this would be a suicide mission, but one that could potentially end so much inhumane cruelty and bloodshed. We had been tasked to enter Yemen undetected, collect testimonies from the locals suffering from hostile occupation, and deliver them for mass publication. We were given the typical weaponry and supplies, but our instructions were to take no electronic devices of any kind. We could not risk leaving any trail detectable digitally or by satellite. Among the members of our team, Jones was the only female, of course receiving the common skepticism during training, but as I can now testify beyond doubt, she earned her place on this mission. Infiltrating, collecting the testimonies, and then attempting to escape when everything goes wrong. The process of doing 3 copies of the testimonies to triple their chances. While everyone's training covered basic Arabic language and writing skills, Kowalski was designated our main translator, and Jones had the most proficient handwriting. McFarland and Fredericks were assigned lookout, as well as alternating photography, leaving Howards and myself as the remaining writers. In the span of a day, we gathered a maximum of 16 testimonies from men and women, elderly, and even children. The difficulty came not from constant attacks, but from finding anyone willing and able to talk to us. Most were too terrified, some too weak. Others could not even understand their own language, let alone Kowalski's translations. Although we made the offer of our rations in exchange, it did little to encourage compliance. Maybe split them up for a little bit, but then, one guy gets captured and we don't really know what happens to his payload. The other 2 are definitely confirmed destroyed. And then it's like the last 2 soldiers hiding in a cave. expecting death, but doing their best, adding a testimony of the events that they just went through. Hopefully to get that publicated as well. But after sustaining an injury in my right shoulder, Fredericks relieved me of my payload, only to meet a barrage of gunfire soon after. I feel certain that had the bullets not hit the payload, Frederick's blood would have tainted it. Upon inspection, Jones's backpack had melted into her skin. The final payload is lost. And so I commenced writing this very testimony on Jones's insistence, choosing one more chance to complete our mission over any form of medical treatment for herself. She lost consciousness during page 6 and died shortly after. If time allows, I will at least honor her sacrifice and dedication with a short burial. I have been fortunate so far to have no interruptions, but I will know soon enough if this fortune holds out. I pray that Howard's copy of the payload still makes it into safe hands somehow, though I cannot rely on that hope. Of course, if it does, then may this testimony also survive and validate all our efforts over these past days. Sergeant Riley, signing off. Like, if an actual book gets published in our world, then it would say that this event did happen, but then no physical evidence exists to back up this story. I clearly don't know how journalism works. This is kind of a concept I've been playing with around a lot, and if I explained it right, the Yemen testimonies was like the closest I've gotten to solidifying that concept into my own story. Basically, it's exploration of the power of stories, hoping for the best of stories, but exploring how it can be corrupted and used against us. I don't know if I had this idea first and then heard about an event in 2013 where they actually smuggled an entire library out of the country. I'd like to see that as a movie. It'd have a happier ending than my version, so yeah, I know I've been using YouTube clips like this lately. Makes it look like I'm too lazy to cite my sources properly, but doing the timing on these clips is actually pretty hard. The bloody motorbike. Another way I've thought about doing it is more about like historical figures. The main idea of a company being created by two people, one who does all the hard work and the other who takes all the glory. Tried to figure out how that could be subverted. The guy who tries to become famous keeps failing at it. The guy who does all the work but doesn't want to be famous ends up being famous anyway. And then however the story goes, it fast forwards to today's world. Oh no, it's a statue of the guy who didn't want to be famous. Nobody wins. Da 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 da. The main area I kind of try to work it out, dip my toe into mythology versus culture discussions. When it comes to like disconnected communities around the world, I do think that it'd be good to share that information with the right people. That's a scenario where it's like education first and foremost, entertainment less of a concern, business as little as possible, but you know, you need the money. Another story idea where like the high and mighty filmmaker sicks a curse on his own ass because he didn't heed the warnings. But of course, the creative gymnastics to tell that story without breaking the rules yourself, that can only come from within the culture. Yeah, it can be done, but not by everyone. Believe it or not, I can even use myself as an example for this. I am Australian with Irish heritage. My go-to joke is, my ancestors didn't want to be here either. I know that I have relatives in Ireland. I could track them down, ask them what kind of stories they grew up with, and in exchange I could tell them the legends of Ned Kelly, our most famous bushranger. No, I'm not a direct relation. And completely by coincidence, a few days before I filmed this, I happened to catch on TV that there was a controversy about a Kelly Gang kids book, a story when Ned saved a young boy from drowning. Yeah, Ned Kelly killed people and was put to death for it. The ancestors of his victims are not happy, but on the other hand, if these events really did happen, don't pretend like you just made them up for the story just to avoid a lawsuit. Admit the events happened. Hell, let's come full circle back to the Emin testimonies, where the mission was to safeguard the first-hand accounts of the victims of atrocities. That mission failed, and if you want to debate authorship, I'm the one who cocked it up, choosing the drama of Last Man Standing over a positive scenario that says this could actually do some good. This can help people. This can make something in this world better. Why do I keep using my own series to demonstrate that my opinion isn't worth shit? Thanks for watching. This is my verbal declaration that I will not sue anyone for using the previous outline to create their own work, regardless of how much fame or money you might get from it. I'm definitely not the kind of artist who thinks I can own a concept. However, I would like to see what comes out of this video just for comparison and curiosity. If you do make something or find an existing piece that's similar, please let me know through Twitter or Facebook or email, and I'll happily check it out. And if you want to see the ideas I am working on for myself, please visit my Patreon page for samples and previews, no payment required. Happy creating, Bard Riley out. The pen is mightier than the sword. Splinter! The sword. Ooh, Splinter! The sword. Ooh, Splinter!